Joining us now is Matthew Hennessey, columnist with the Wall Street Journal. Matthew, welcome back. Great to be with you again. I want to start off by talking about former President Trump and his arraignment yesterday, where, as mentioned, he pleaded not guilty. But it's what happened outside the courthouse, where huge crowds of people gathered, and then later in Bedminster, New Jersey, that has a lot of people talking. What did you think about the scene that played out in Florida, and also what Trump had to say to his supporters at his golf club?
Well, I think what's notable about what happened in Florida is what didn't happen. There was a lot of talk in the media about the potential for violence, for out-of-control protests and counter-protests, and none of that really happened. It was all very sedate. It was less dramatic, maybe even than his appearance in a New York courtroom a month ago. He went in, he came out, he went to a cafeteria, some local people prayed over him, and he got on a plane and he left. The speech in New Jersey was fairly typical of Trump, a litany of grievances. A small crowd of donors evidently raised $2 million there. And it was much the same story as it always is with President Trump. He was reading his speech, sometimes going off script to the delight of the crowd, essentially saying, I did nothing wrong. They're all out to get me. It's a witch hunt. And it's on par with the Russia hoax. So I think the story from yesterday's events in Florida and New Jersey is more about what didn't happen than what did.
Yeah, I want to talk about this now. Our White House correspondent, Owen Jensen, has really been making some news today of his own after his interaction yesterday with White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre when he asked her about transgender athletes participating in girls' sports. We showed this clip yesterday, but here it is again. Take a look.
And what would the president say to parents out there who have daughters, let's say in high school, for example, who are worried that their daughter may have to compete against a male, a person born male, and there could be directly in physical athletic competition and worry about their daughter's safety?
What you're alluding to is basically saying that transgender kids are dangerous. It sounds like that's what you're saying. Well, you're saying that their safety is at risk. Yeah, but you're laying out a broad example or explanation of what could potentially happen. A broad example explanation that is dangerous.
Matthew, what's your reaction to this, and why do you think it's getting so much attention?
Well, my reaction to it is that it is dangerous when a boy and a girl play, potentially contact sports with each other. It is dangerous potentially to the girl. And the fact that the White House is so out of touch on that, I think is remarkable. This is obviously a core electoral constituency for them, the far left, the LGBT community, and they're leaning in hard to that to try to maintain that support. The economy is stalled. The border is a mess. We've got wars overseas, potentially a conflict with China looming. They're looking for anything that they can get that they think will shore up their core support, and this is clearly it. I think they're really out of touch. I think that the backlash, when it comes, will be very, very strong, and they may not know what hit them because they will have forgotten about all of this. But I think that parents across the country feel very much like your reporter, in sympathy with the position that he laid out, that this is kind of crazy and kind of out of control, and the fact they can't see it speaks poorly of their political vision.
Yeah, I want to pivot now to this. It seems that Bud Light is no longer the king of beers. It's been knocked down to the #2 spot when it comes to sales. Talk to us more about that and also what's behind it.
Yeah, so Bud Light lost its top spot on the beer charts for the first time in a very long time. It's still the top-selling beer year over year, but compared to this time last year, it's down by 20% or so. So that's pretty significant. It's been replaced by Modelo, a Mexican beer, which beer drinkers may consider odd. It's not exactly what you would call a replacement product. If you're going to stop drinking Bud Light, I don't think that Modelo would be the first beer that you turn to. But as we look at the data, you see that all light beers are taking a hit. They're all down a little bit. So what explains it? Hard to say. Certainly, the Anheuser-Busch stock price reflects a very severe dip in the last 6 weeks as a result. It's very clear. If you look at the chart, you can see it's very much related to the Dylan Mulvaney thing. It's worth pointing out, however, that it's creeping up again. So it was down roughly 19%, and it's now down about 15%, suggesting that perhaps people are forgiving and forgetting. Over time, I suspect that people will go back to Bud Light if they like it. I'm not a Bud Light drinker, but people tend to be very loyal to the beers that they like. It's hard to imagine that long term that this will be a problem for Bud Light, but it sure is a problem in the short term.
Absolutely. We'll see how that pans out. Matthew, great to be with you and get your insights again. We appreciate it.
Thank you.